Great. I'm so glad you guys are here for tonight's episode of More Up North. It's going to be a lot of fun. What's going on the Assembly in Anchorage? I know, you could be bored, you could be a gnome. It's actually pretty exciting. The mayor came out and basically called Mike Gutierrez a liar this week, and in the great words of the great John Bitney, the rules of engagement have changed. So Mike Gutierrez is here. I also invited Bill Starr, but this is all that showed up. So it'll do. That'll do. And then we've got a great panel that'll be coming on and talking to us about Supreme Court decision and how it affects Alaska. Yeah, it's not just a corrupt bastards club. Now they're actually legitimate. It could be a problem. So thanks for joining us, and we'll be right back with More Up North. Welcome back. Welcome back. You know, sometimes we have to restart the show because I don't think the applause is sincere enough. No, I'm kidding. It was wonderful. I'm so glad you're joining us for More Up North. And I want to touch on a couple things having to do with the Assembly of Anchorage. And you may be listening and be a Nome or Juneau or Fairbanks or some other place that sounds like something's caught in your throat. But here's the thing. Anchorage is really this gigantic hub of Alaska. And what happens in Anchorage politics really does affect so many people coming in. And Assembly Chair, Co-Chair, Mike Gutierrez has agreed to come in because the rules of engagement have changed this week, and now he's decided to come below the fray with me. Welcome.
Thank you. I mean, how could I resist?
He is the Vice Chair of the Anchorage Assembly and a legislative liaison to the Federation of Community Councils. And we have another guest, Bill Starr, who's an Anchorage Assemblyman from Eagle River. He chairs the Public Safety, Community, and Economic Development Audit. Oh, wait. Actually, he didn't respond to our invitation. We tried several times, even I think talked to his wife, and he was not interested in coming on. But we did have him a chair, and feel free to get your picture taken with Bill Starr this evening. So, really. So can you, for people out of Anchorage, this has just sort of been a lot of drama going on, a lot of fighting, blaming. For everyone who thinks that Obama shouldn't blame Bush, they think it's fine that Sullivan blames Begich.
Yeah, that seems to be just the overarching theme is Mark Begich evil. Everything he did was wrong. People in the Begich administration broke the law, and you know, we have Bill Starr going to the FBI with a lot of stuff that just kind of makes you scratch your head, and then going to the city's bonding agency, going to Standard & Poor's, which sets our bond rating, and telling them that our bond rating is basically based on fraud, which it isn't. It would be next to impossible, I think, to perpetrate a fraud on Standard & Poor's. But you know, you have to scratch your head and wonder, what's he thinking? What's he trying to do? Because the net effect of doing that would be to lower the city's bond rating, which would make everything we do more expensive for every person who pays taxes in the municipality.
Right, so, and in all fairness, Bill Starr may be being interviewed right now by the FBI. We don't know. I find that hard to believe. However, Standard & Poor's, it's basically the Equifax for municipalities and for organizations that get bonds. Am I
Yes.
right? So it's sort of like if you thought your wife didn't pay a bill or maybe paid it wrong, and you weren't quite sure, and you hadn't really got a chance to talk to her, and when she said, no, I took care of it, you didn't believe her, and then you called Equifax and said, I think my wife lied to you, and therefore, could you lower our credit rating? Right?
It's a little more like calling Equifax or calling American Express and saying, my wife lied on her credit card application, would you please revoke our credit? And it's a little more serious than that.
Why would you do that? I mean, and going back, and this could really affect the city. I know there's a chance that Standard & Poor's is going to say, you know what, this is just some freak from Alaska. He doesn't, we've seen this before, people with their political ambitions going after, basically cutting off their nose to spite their face. We already have an audit that we have every single year done, is my understanding.
Yes. And I think that's the point that needs to be brought forward, that this isn't, the city just doesn't put together a pile of information and hand it to Standard & Poor's and say, here's our financial position, just take our word for it, it's good. You know, they do their own investigation. They look at records themselves. They look at the audits that are done every year of the municipality. And I know the mayor and several assembly members are calling for an audit. Well, that's great. We've already had an audit done. We have an audit done every year, and the 2008 audit was done by Mukunda Cottrell, a firm here in town with a good reputation. They do a lot of work, and they worked very hard on that audit, and we got a clean bill of health from them. So if our bond rating is somehow based on fraud, then I find it hard to believe they wouldn't have picked up on it. So I wonder if Mr. Starr and the mayor and others are accusing Mukunda Cottrell of somehow being complicit in this fraud. And frankly, if I were a lawyer at Mukunda, I'd be looking into that very seriously.
So, or it was just Mark Begich on the grassy knoll.
Yeah.
I mean, it's this sort of huge conspiracy. I mean, really. I mean,
Well,
the
Mark
people.
Begich was on the grassy knoll. Mark Begich is responsible for alien abductions. It's Mark Begich's fault that climate change is happening. You know, my dog died when I was 10. That was Mark Begich's fault too.
Right.
So everything is hate Mark Begich, hate Mark Begich, hate Mark Begich, no matter what the consequences of that hate bring.
Right. So the pathology to take down Mark Begich, it's okay to take down part of the city, or at least the city's credit rating, to do that.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the mayor responded to you this week. He was asked about you, and this is Dan Sullivan, not to be confused with Attorney General Dan Sullivan. I don't want to upset him in any way. He said, when he was asked about what you had said, that look, this could really affect our credit rating. What is he doing? This sort of thing. He said Gutierrez is clearly not interested in seeking the truth of this matter. On February 2nd, I think we're going to see a final effort to have the body do its due diligence, and I think it's safe to say there may not be the votes. Once the Assembly has washed its hands of the issue, we're considering taking the steps to follow this through to its conclusion. Do you think that this could include waterboarding? I mean...
I hope not. I really have a low tolerance for pain. You know, I find that I just get this image of Dan Sullivan as in A Few Good Men, and you can't handle the truth. It's a little funny. I think I know what the truth is. I think the truth is this is all part of this hate Mark Begich campaign, which ultimately leads to, well, gee, we should elect Dan Sullivan as a United States Senator, and it's going to be 5 more years of just campaigning from the mayor's office, and that's where this is going. We have an audit. We have a clean audit. But, you know, so let's do another audit. And I think, but I think that the devil's in the details here. There's a great line from a movie that I love. It's a Western, Open Range. I'm that kind of guy. I like Westerns. Kevin Costner.
Hey, I've read every Louis L'Amour they've written.
You know, he says most times a man will tell you his bad intentions if you're patient enough to listen. Yesterday at the AEDC forecast luncheon, the mayor told a pretty bad joke. He said something along the lines of a businessman needed an audit done, so he brought in a mathematician, an economist, and an accountant. And he brought in the mathematician first and said, what's 2 plus 2? And the mathematician said 2 plus 2 is 4. Then he brought in the accountant and said, what's 2 plus 2? And the accountant said 2 plus 2 is almost always 4. Then he brought in the economist and he said, what's 2 plus 2? And the economist closed the door, drew the blinds, and whispered in his ear, 2 plus 2 is whatever you want it to be. So if the mayor's going to go out and do his own audit, I think we all can predict what the response is going to be. The result will be whatever he tells the auditor it will be. So there may be some value in the Assembly saying, okay, fine, we're going to have an audit, but we're going to have some rules around this, and you don't get to just determine the outcome on your own. We actually want a real audit and an independent audit. We know what we're going to get because we've already had an independent audit from Mukunda Cottrell, and they did a fine job. If they want to waste more taxpayers' dollars and get the same from somebody else, you know, the net effect is wasting more taxpayers' dollars on this hate Mark Begich agenda, but they're going to do it anyway.
Well, and what it ends up happening is that either Anchorage homeowners are going to have to pay more taxes, or we're going to have a sales tax. So that means everybody that drives in here in a station wagon or a great big Ford Compensator and fills up at Costco is going to have to pay some taxes.
You know, if they want to spend $30,000 to do an audit, that's fine. Let's take it out of the mayor's budget.
Hey.
He's got a budget. Let's take it out of the mayor's budget.
All right. Well, I think it could be considered some sort of campaign donation at that point to his Senate run. You know, the one thing I can say is that he's open and transparent, because I can pretty much figure out what he's doing all the time. All right. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me here. I didn't wear my Bill Cosby sweater because you're always making fun of me for wearing it. So now I have to buy new clothes just because of you.
Hey, I'm getting rid of one Cosby sweater at a time. It's my contribution to the world. It's not just democracy I fight for, it's fashion. It is. All right, I'm Shannyn Moore. This is More Up North. We'll be right back.